Hi, everyone. This week is all about sensory perception and all of our senses throughout our lifespan. Before we get into all of the changes that will happen in terms of our sensory perceptions throughout our lives, I thought I'd do a little bit of a review of our sensory perceptions that are important for movement that we discussed in week 1 of the semester. So I'll just review those again and then give you something to help relieve some stress right now. If you're like me, then you are super duper stressed with just about everything right now. So I thought I'd give you a couple of things to decrease your stress and also just to remind you to get back into your body. So let's do a quick reminder. Remember the 5 senses that are important for movement in terms of this class are vision, so our sense of vision, our vestibular system, our sense of balance and what our head being upright feels like, our tactile sensation, so our sense of touch, proprioception, so that's our understanding of where our limbs are in space relative to the rest of our body, and finally auditory. So we can hear things that are happening around us and choose to respond, or we can hear the outcomes of our movements as well. So I'm going to give you a couple of things to think about as we're going through all of our sensations here. So the first thing that we're going to do, we're going to talk about and play around with our visual system. And actually, before I get into that, just remember at any given moment, we're paying attention to all of our senses. So even though I might not be having to pay much attention to the fact that my legs are touching a chair right now, that kind of information is being processed in my brain so that I can stay upright. And so at any given moment, we're paying attention to all these different sensory things around us. And it's really good that we're able to integrate information coming from all of our senses, but sometimes it can lead to kind of a sensory overload, especially for certain populations. We'll get through that in a little bit. But yeah, we want to, it's good that we have these different ways to pick up information about our environments, because just in case one of our senses doesn't work for the moment, then or we have a condition where our sense is not available to us anymore, that we can still get around. We can still do other things because we have our other senses to pay attention to. So with that in mind, here are a couple of activities for us to do. So again, we're going to start out with vision. So the first thing to kind of just calm us down is just to look around the room, giving no judgment to everything that's around our room. My desk, for example, is a disaster, but we're not going to pay attention to that right now. I'm just going to look at 5 things that I can see around me and just count 5 things that I can see around me. So I see a window, I see a tree, I see a ball, I see a glass, and I see a plant. All right, so you can do the same right now. Just list 5 things that you can see in front of you. There's probably more than 5 things, and that's okay. So just list 5 things. Next is to play around with an idea called smooth pursuit. So smooth pursuit is our ability to kind of keep our eye on something as something else is moving. All right, so what I'm going to have you do is I'm going to have you put your finger in front of your face like this, and then move your finger out to the side and make sure that your eyes are tracking that finger this whole time. And then bring it back to center, and then over to the left, center, right, center, left, center. So that's called smooth pursuit because our eyes are smoothly going across the horizon. The next thing is the opposite. It's called a saccade. Now a saccade is something where our eyes can jump from one thing to the next. So that's what was happening when you were looking at the 5 things in your room, is that you were jumping from one object to the other. So this one is really good to do, especially if you're outside, if you're near a window. If you're not, then try to orient yourself towards the outside. but I want you to pick up something that is close to you, which if you're like me, you have your phone around you at all times. So this is something that you can look at close up. Now I want you to bring your eyes to something way far out in the distance. So this is especially great if you're near a window. So look at something close and then look up the window. Close, window, close, window. And so see how when I was doing that, my eyes are skipping really quickly back and forth. So again, that's called a saccade, and see how that's different than a smooth pursuit where our eyes were going slowly across the scene. All right, the next one that I want us to do, let's see here, our visual system. All right, so the next one, I want you to go ahead and stand up. We're going to try this in 2 different ways. This is an activity that I would do, especially for people if they've had if they were after like a car accident where their sensory system was just like way out of control, and especially in cases of whiplash because you want people's like neck muscles to get stronger. And so so for this one, we're going to put our thumb in front of our face like this, and I want you to turn your head side to side, but keep your eye on your thumb the whole time. Now this is a way that we can still do smooth pursuit, except this time we're turning our head and our eyes are staying still. So it's a slight difference, but it's a way of getting both our visual system, our vestibular system, and also even kind of our proprioceptive system, like our understanding of where our neck is in space. There's all this information that's happening right now with this simple activity. You can do the same thing if you just like look at something in front of you. So keep your eye on a target. I'm gonna look at myself and then the camera here, and then turn your body. So keep your head totally still, but just turn your body around. So again, this is kind of getting into the vestibular system, the visual system, and proprioceptive system to kind of all integrate together and help us kind of just relax. So this is a pretty easy thing for us to do right here. You can even try different planes of movement. This is another good one if you want to get more in touch with your vestibular system, is to kind of test your balance a little bit. So again, our vestibular system is this kind of interlocked organ where it's really sensitive to changes and movements of the head. And so it can tell if you're leaning forward or leaning back. So go ahead and try that a couple times. So bring your head forward, bring your head back, bring your head forward, bring your head back. All right. Now the way to get your head to go forward and back without moving your neck is to lean forward and then lean back. And notice how our body, like you kind of have a point where you're like, I actually can't lean that much further forward or else I'm really gonna fall. So try to find that point, all right? And see what it feels like to really lean that far forward, all right? And then get back to neutral again. All right, now lean forward again. All right, where do you feel that? I feel that right now, I feel that in my toes because I'm putting more weight in the front of my toes. So that sense of where that I'm feeling this more in my toes, it's kind of a combination of tactile and proprioception. And so right now I can feel the carpet underneath my toes. And so that is giving me that tactile information. I can tell what the temperature is of the ground. I can tell what the texture is like. And then I can also use my sense of proprioception. Like I'm putting, there's a lot of stress that's going into my toes right now. And like I can feel more burning in the back of my calves that are like, we need to return to neutral. And so we can come back up to neutral. So try to feel like, all right, where am I actually feeling this in my body? And notice how like, sometimes it's our muscles that hold us back, but if we tried to lean super far forward, there is a point where we can't go anymore. So let's try the same thing when we lean back. So try to lean back as far as you can. You might need to step back if you go too far, which is a balance strategy. But yeah, when you lean back, again, you reach that point, you'll notice that you're leaning, putting more of your weight into your heels when you're doing that. So now try, as you lean to the side, what happens if you lean too far forward? Is that and you end up lifting up your arm. All right. So try to feel like what the limits of your stability are, side to side. And as I'm doing this, I want you all to notice what's happening with my head as I'm going side to side. My head is mostly staying in line with gravity. So it's mostly staying upright. So you can try to play around with keeping your head and body in the single plane. All right, because that's not typically what our bodies will end up doing. So like really try to focus on that. Another thing that you can play around with is rotating your head side to side. And you can add that into walking. This is another balance test that we would do in the clinic, especially with older adults, is having people walk while they turn their head side to side. And what I'm looking for as people were doing that is, are they steering totally off track, or are they able to walk in a straight line? So sort of like a sobriety test, if you will. But yeah, go ahead and try that, both with turning your head to the side while you're walking, and then try to do it with yourself looking up and down as you're walking. The other thing that our vestibular system does is that it helps us to understand if we're speeding up or if we're slowing down, if we're going forward or backward, not just about the direction of our head, but really the direction of our body as well. And so as you're walking, this is another test for older adults, but I want you to try walking and then speed up and then slow down. So start slow and then speed up, and just see what that feels like. If you do have access to like an open yard or something like that, or going outside, just play around with speeding up and slowing down. Just not for like exercise, just to get inside your body and get inside your senses a little bit. All right, the next thing that I want you to do is, you know what, let's kind of play around still more with the vestibular and vision stuff. So this time I'm going to have you practice standing on one leg. All right, so as you're standing on one leg, I brought my leg forward. Try not to touch your leg with the other side. You can do this barefoot. I prefer to do this barefoot. I'm just a barefoot person, but you can have shoes on, it doesn't matter. So yeah, with this one, just try to stay up as long as you can. What you notice is this is actually a really good exercise for your ankle muscles, because if you're like me, your foot's kind of moving around a little bit. And so think about all the muscles that are controlling your ankle right now that are helping you stay upright, right? So that is a sense of proprioception, of us figuring out how much force we have to put into an antagonist versus an antagonist. How much do we have to co-contract? How much do we have to use the muscles that control us, going more into inversion versus eversion? All right, so as you're standing here, really pay attention to that really fine control that's happening at the level of your ankle. Now we're gonna take away our sense of vision. All right, so as we close our eyes, this is again why it's important that we have all these different senses that are processed in the brain at the same time. So with our balance here, we notice that I'm already like swaying a lot more because I only have access to my which two systems. I'm paying attention to only two of my available systems for my balance right now. The first one that is not disturbed right now is my vestibular system. So my vestibular system, oh, fail. Oh gosh, I'm like gonna be sore from this. My vestibular system is again in my head, so I can tell if I'm leaning side to side or forward or backwards. The other one that's intact right now is my proprioceptive system, and tactile, and together it's kind of the somatosensory system. So I have to really pay attention and really feel that proprioceptive system. To make that one a little bit harder, we're going to try a couple of different things, and I'm going to try it on my other side because I'm sore. But, and of course I don't have it right here. I'm going to get, I have a couple of t-shirts here, but you can use a pillow, you can use, a folded up blanket, something like that, a towel. But put that on the ground and then stand on that, all right? So what's happening right now is that I'm making the ground more difficult to stand on. So I'm making it more of an unpredictable environment. So I'm making the proprioceptive system have to work a little bit harder right now, all right? So when I close my eyes, now, the vestibular system is like, we need to be perfect right now, while the proprioceptive system can like kind of figure itself out and figure out what the right amount of force is in this new sensory environment of standing on a couple things. All right, now the fun really begins when you start playing around with the vestibular system. Now this is not like a perfect way of testing the vestibular system. There's like way more advanced techniques to play around with the vestibular system, but let's try this. So again, stand on one leg, all right? And now close your eyes. Let's try this with our eyes open first. Let's not get crazy here. All right, so eyes open, and then tilt your head back. All right, now very rarely in our world are we looking up while we're doing things, right? And so when we are looking up, we can't use our vestibular system as we typically are able to. When we're standing on one leg and we're able to look forward like this, then this is how our vestibular system is typically oriented. So now let's make this really crazy here. So now close your eyes, all right? So already we have to pay more attention to our proprioceptive system and our ankles and our vestibular system and our ears. And now we're going to tilt the head back and notice how much more sway I have when I have my eyes closed and head back because of that different orientation. So have fun with that one. See if you can make it a whole minute. I think that's the max that I've ever seen. So it's pretty impressive if you can do that. All right. So now let's go ahead and sit for a while. Bring my chair back over. We'll kind of wrap this up in a couple of easy activities here. Again, de-stressing and getting back in touch with our bodies and our senses, giving you names for all these things that you already know inherently in your own body, but just having fun with it now. So the first thing we're going to do is get in touch with our tactile senses. So right now, wherever you are, how many things are you currently touching? All right. So right now, my feet are on the floor. I'll show you in a second what my floor looks like. It's a new art project. But right now I can feel both of my feet flat on the floor. I can feel my hands are on my front of my thighs, just resting. I can feel my legs on the chair and where it cuts off on my mid-thigh. I am not leaning back in the chair, so as you can see, there's plenty of room here, so I can't feel the chair against my back. But yeah, as you, if you can't feel even that many things, maybe even try to play around with different sensations, different things that you're feeling. Think about, try to feel as many things around you as possible. What does something hard feel like versus something soft something novel. This has like a little bit sharp edges on it. This has, let's not stab ourselves. But yeah, so you can feel like a sharper object. And also there's different parts of our body that are more sensitive than others. And certain areas of the brain are receiving more information from certain areas of the body. And so, for example, the hands and the lips are receiving way more information. The area of the brain, the sensory area of the brain that picks up information from all over our body, the representation for the hands and for the lips is just so much bigger than let's say like for the elbow, for example. And so think about which areas of your body are more sensitive. Now, something that we would do in the clinical setting is something called 2-point discrimination. And while it's kind of imperfect to do it like I'm going to show you, but I want you to start with your fingers, like this. All right, so we're like we're about to pinch, and this works better if you have longer nails. But I'm going to have you do this, and then put your hand, put it on your forearm right here, and you want to close your eyes and bring your fingers, bring like little fingernails closer to each other until you can only feel like you're only being touched with one fingernail. All right. So that's about like right here. And as you get closer to your hand, you notice that your fingers are going to get smaller. They're going to get closer together because of the receptive fields in our skin. We're going to have smaller receptive fields in our skin. And so we can pick up more area that's densely compacted right here in our hands. And so feel the difference between touching the inside of your forearm versus the outside of your forearm even. What does that feel like versus, your knee? Do you still feel, do your fingers need to be further apart now for you to only feel, one sensation? And so, so try to figure out where on your body are you most sensitive and least sensitive. And try to play around with different sensations as well. That's something that we would do in a clinical setting, especially with kids with disabilities, where they become kind of more overwhelmed with sensory information. So you kind of learn which kind of senses and which textures are kind of more calming, and then you start to work up from there. I would also use this in the clinical setting when someone had an injury and might be like really sensitive to a certain area. So let's say that someone had a total knee surgery and the scar is still healing, but it's like it kind of feels like numb in a lot of this area. So what you would do is that you'd start rubbing this area with different types of fabric. So you're going to start out with the really soft kinds of fabric and really light. And then you start moving to different types of fabric. So let's, say it's like a t-shirt kind of fabric, and start rubbing on that area to increase your sensation to that area, but still friendly. You want to just reintroduce nice sensations to your body. And then you can play around with other sensations, getting into more rough things, like if you find a leaf outside and you can rub that on your hand and see what that feels like in comparison. And then let's play around with proprioception next. So proprioception, we are also, kind of feeling it while we are standing and balancing, but we can also play around with it to figure out how much force we need to put into something. So with this activity, we're going to play around with different percentages of force. All right, so right now my hands are open. I have 0% of a fist right now. All right, so let's get our hands in a fist and squeeze them 100%. Like you cannot squeeze them any harder than this. This is 100%. All right, 100%, 100%, 100%. Okay, and now let's bring it to 50%. So 50% of that pressure It's about right here. All right, let's go to 75%. So not somewhere halfway between 50% and 100% of squeezing. All right, and then let's go to 25%. So can we do that? Let's go to 50% of that maximal squeeze and not quite zero, somewhere in between those two. So see if you can do that with different muscles of your body as well, and different areas of your body. Play around with the amount of force that you're able to put into a contraction. You know, what does an isometric bicep curl feel like at 100% versus 50% versus 25%? So playing around with that different amount of force is another way for you to get in touch with your proprioceptive system. And the last one that I'm going to do is to play around with your proprioception and your auditory system. And I'm going to do this by knocking vision out because we typically become so much, we rely a lot on our vision, especially as we get older, which, we'll learn about this in a second, but fun fact, our vision gets worse as we get older, but we're so overly reliant on our vision in adulthood, so it becomes a problem. So anyways, for this next activity, try to get like a glass of water and like something else. Like, so I have a little kettle here, and then I have a jar. All right. So in order to pour water from this thing into the glass, I have to raise my arm up, right? In order to be able to pour in here. Okay. And so, and to be able to pour consistently at the right speed and not like overly do it. People who have problems with their coordination, it's typically a problem with their proprioceptive system. So it's a problem with how much force to kind of put into things. So typically we want to pour things that is kind of smooth, all right? And I'll pour it back here. And so, and I don't know if you guys can hear that, but as I'm pouring, you can also hear the outcome of your movement. So I'm going to go ahead and attempt to pour water from the kettle into the glass without using my vision, all right? And so I'm going to pay attention to which sensations. All right, so, all right. Oop, I already spilled on myself, but now I can hear it. I can tell that my left hand is getting more weight in it. There's less weight in my right hand, so I'm getting rid of most of the liquid in my right hand. I can hear it. I'm getting nervous. I didn't measure all this. I don't know how much I have. But as you get closer to the top, see if you can hear it. Oop. All right, so a lot of failed attempts right there. My proprioceptive system needs to understand this, the weight and what it feels like in these objects a little bit more for me to be better at that. But so that's how I'll leave you with my little workstation all filled with water. Try this one with water, not with anything else, not with anything sticky, because that's a nightmare. Okay, so I'll leave you with this. This is an art project that I've been doing for these last couple weeks. So I've been going out to the beach and grabbing rocks from, it's from the big lagoon. And I have this little mat right here so that as I'm working, I can put my feet on it, and that's what I'm feeling instead of the floor. It's just a different way. It's just a different sensory system, a different thing for my body to feel rather than just the floor. So play around with your senses a little bit. Remember, the only thing that we really have control over is our own body. And so enjoy your body, enjoy your senses, and de-stress a little bit. I'll catch you soon and I'll tell you more about all the changes that happen in terms of all of our sensory systems throughout our lives coming up.